Hello friends, welcome to this video from Chaturmanas. In this video, we are going to learn about RDS services offered by AWS. In terms of database services, AWS has a lot of things to offer. It has a relational database based on Amazon Aurora, Amazon RDS, and Redshift. In terms of key value database, which is a NoSQL as well, based on Amazon DynamoDB. It has an in-memory database based on Elastic Cache for Memcached and Elastic Cache for Redis. It has a document database, which is a document DB. Then it has a white column, which is based on Cassandra, which is managed by AWS. Then it has a graph database, which is a Neptune. Then it has a time series, which is a time stream. And then finally a ledger, which is a QLDB. So these are the different services offered by AWS in terms of its database services. In this particular video, we are going to learn more about the RDS. The RDS stands for Relational Database System. So Relational Database System is mainly used for all the data to be maintained in rows and columns in the database. So there are 6 databases supported by AWS as on date. So the first one is an Amazon Aurora, which is its own product, which is based on a MySQL database. Amazon Aurora is 5 times faster than that of MySQL. That's why a lot of people uses Amazon Aurora in their production environment. Then we have PostgreSQL, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, and SQL Server. So PostgreSQL, MySQL, and MariaDB um, are free product which can be launched onto the AWS as a service. Oracle and SQL are enterprise class of databases which also AWS supports bringing your own license into Oracle and SQL. For example, you already have an unutilized license of an Oracle or a SQL server from your on-premise that can be ported onto AWS, and that can be used to have a Oracle instance or the SQL instance by using the same license, and that is called as bring your own license, wherein AWS is not going to charge you anything for that particular license. It will charge you only for the infrastructure on which the Oracle or the SQL has been deployed on. Okay, so these are the different database systems which are available, and these are the different licensing schemes that AWS offers you to launch these database engines. So now we will go to AWS and we will see how to create a MySQL database, and we will see how easy difficult it is to create a MySQL instance without having much of the knowledge on a MySQL itself. Okay, and for that I will go to AWS account, and I have already logged in into the AWS account, and you can see I have logged in with my company ID and I'm in a Mumbai region. And currently I have two tabs. The one tab I have kept it for VPC, where I'm showing you how many VPCs that I have. And in terms of VPC, there is a default VPC that has been created by AWS itself, and I created this account. The next one is it's a custom VPC that has been created by me for this particular demo. In this VPC, we have two subnets, a private and a public. Okay, now if I go to the other tab, I have all the services listed here. The database services are listed under RDS. Okay, either you can search RDS here, or you can scroll down and you will get RDS services. I'll click on this RDS service and it will take me to the dashboard of the RDS. So in the RDS, okay, we have two important settings that to be done to create the database. The first setting is, of course, creating the database itself. Okay, but there is another setting is called as a subnet grouping. So subnet grouping um, is a configuration wherein you will specify what subnets from which VPC to be included in the creation process of the database. Let's for example, let's take you have created your own VPC, and in this VPC you have created two subnets, one for a public subnet and one for a private subnet. Okay, and ideally all your database engines, you really want them to be in a private subnet where you do not want the outsider from an internet be able to access this this server. Okay, that's the reason why you would like to have it in a private subnet. And all the servers, something like a web server and all, you would like to keep it in a public subnet, which will allow you to get access from an internet. And that's how typically all these network engineers guys design their networking quite structurally. So we have other video on this particular channel that will demonstrate how to create this VPC and how to create this public and private subnets. Okay, please feel free to watch that and learn how to create a VPC. As part of this particular demo, I'm not going to demonstrate you how to create an VPC, and that's why the VPC is already created. Now, to make this particular private subnet as well as the public subnet both available for this database as part of their subnets, first you have to do a subnet group setting. And most of the people have seen that they don't do this setting, and at the end they will not be able to create this database into the respective subnets. By default, only the default VPC that has been created by AWS is allowed to create a databases in that particular VPC. Okay, so let's try to do this. Let's create this subnet group and say create subnet group, and I'll call it as new subnet group, and I will say new group for databases, and I'll choose the VPC here, which is my VPC, and then all the subnets related to this particular VPC. I really want to add all the subnets those are available in this VPC to be created. Then I will say create, and that particular subnet is created. Okay, so once it is in this particular list in the subnet group, then only you will be able to create an RDS instance in this VPC. Otherwise, you will not be able to create this instance on this VPC. So I'll go to the database now, and this particular step is optional. If you want to continue with the default VPC, this particular step is optional. So those who want to try out this lab on the default VPC, please do not need not to do anything on the subnet groups. So I'll just click on the databases here, and before that let me just click on the dashboard, and it will show you what all the different databases that I have already created. And since this is a new account that I have created for this demo, and I do not have any of the databases those are running, you can see DB instances 0 out of 20. Okay, I don't have any instances so far running as part of this particular database. So I'll click on database to create a new database, and I'll say create database. Okay, and when you click on the create database, it will ask me whether it's a standard create or it's an easy create. Easy create, it basically reduces certain steps, but it takes some of the configuration by itself. It doesn't ask you for those configurations to be chosen when you are creating the database. If you are really new, or if you want out of the box database instance to be created, then you can go for easy create. For this particular demo, I'll go with the standard create, so that I can show you all the other options that will that you need to configure to create a database engine. Then, as I said, there are 6 database engines which are supported: Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle, and then finally SQL Server. So I'll choose MySQL here, because as part of this particular demo we will create a MySQL instance, and then it will ask you whether it is what version of the MySQL that you are interested to create in. Okay, you have the versions from 5.5 to 8.0, so I will go with 5.7 itself. I don't make any changes here. I'll go with the default one. Then next you have is a template. It will ask whether you have it in a production or dev test or a free tier, what you want to do with that. Okay, you can have this instance created for your production, where some more inputs to be given during the creation of the database. If it is a dev test, the questionnaires or the inputs to be given are different. In case of free tier, the inputs that you'll give are different. Okay, what I will do is I'll click on production, and I will show you which of the option does not exist in the dev test and free tier environment. The next setting that you will do is a database name. So database instance identifier. So it's basically going to create an EC2 for you. On top of that EC2, it is going to install an Oracle or SQL or MySQL instance, and then it will give you the address so that you can go and access that particular database engine. So it is asking what should be the name of that particular DB instance. So by default, it has taken database 1, and this has to be unique across your AWS account. Okay, and in that particular region. So you cannot have another database 1 in Mumbai. This is what it means. Okay. However, this particular EC2 that it's going to create to host either MySQL or Oracle is not going to be listed down in our EC2 instance list. Okay, because it is a managed service. AWS is going to manage that EC2, so this particular instance will not be able to visible in that EC2 list, as well as you will not be able to log in into that particular virtual machine. Okay, if you really want to do that, then you launch an EC2 and you install Oracle, MySQL or SQL database yourself. Then only you will have an access to the operating system level as well. Okay, so this service, I'm repeating, is a managed service from AWS, wherein you will not get a you will not get an access to the operating system level of the virtual machine where this database is installed. Then it will ask for the credential, the by default username what you want to give for your database. Then I will give it as an admin, and then I will give, you can either auto generate the password or you can take key in the password here. I will key in the password. I will call it as, I'll give some password, and then it will ask for DB instance size. DB instance size is either it's a standard class, include M classes, memory optimized classes, or R and X and burstable classes. So if you are aware about the EC2 classes, there are different kinds of the classes or different types of the EC2 that you have. So we call it a general purpose, which are burstable in nature. Then we have compute optimized, you have memory optimized, storage optimized, and then we have a GPU based. Okay, especially when you choose an EC2 for a production environment on a for a database, then it has to be a high-end server. It cannot be a very low-end server. That's what it means. Okay, the M classes and R and X classes are the higher versions, whereas the T classes are lower version, and this is one of the difference. So above you have chosen production, that's why it is asking for these classes. If you had chosen free tier, then it would have by default chosen only the burstable T classes. Okay, so because again, even though we have chosen production, we still want to go with burstable small classes, and as part of the free tier, we are eligible to use DB T2 micro. So we will go ahead with that, which is 1 vCPU and 1 GB RAM. And then it asks for a storage as well. And again, the assumption is that especially when you are using a database on a database server, its hard disk has to be with a high capacity, and that's why we use a provisioned IOPS. Okay, the SSD disk which has more IOPS. Okay, that's what by default it chooses. Again, this setting is chosen provisioned IOPS because we have chosen a production. If it was a free tier, then it would have chosen a general purpose, which is part of a free tier. Okay, so the provisioned IOPS will help you to define how many IOPS you require on that particular EBS volume of EC2. Okay, if you are getting confused with these words like EBS, EC2 and all, so we have another video on the same channel which will help you to create EC2, and where we have explained how to create an EC2, what is an EBS, what is this IOP, and how to choose that, and all those options. Okay, please feel free to watch that particular video to understand how the EC2 works in AWS. Okay, so for this particular demo, I'll go with general purpose, and then the minimum storage that we have is at 20 GB. But this 20 GB is allowed to auto scale as and when the data keep increasing into that storage. Okay, that is what the setting that you will do. Enable storage auto scaling. Okay, so if I just uncheck this, then it is going to be fixed for 20 GB. So the 21st GB will not be allowed into that particular SSD, right? So if you say enable auto scaling, so as the data increases onto your database engine, it keeps increasing its disk as well. Okay, and along with the scaling, you also need to specify what is the maximum storage that you would like to allocate. So it's a 1000 gig, which is nothing but almost a TB, right? And then high availability and durability. High availability is a multi availability zone deployment. Okay, availability zone is nothing but the different data centers that you have in the same region is called as a availability zone. So since you have chosen production here, it assumes that you want to build a high availability and you want to do a replication of the data between them, so that even if one data center goes down, you will be able to access your service or use the database services from your other availability zone. That's why it is a multi availability zone deployment. If you had chosen a free tier, then by this option would have been disabled. Sorry about that. So again, I'll go with a free tier implementation. So I'll say do not create a standby instance. It means I'm sticking on to a single availability zone. Then I'll choose a default. I'll choose a VPC, and this time you are getting a my VPC because we have already configured the security group there. But for this particular demo, I will continue with the default VPC. I already mentioned creating your VPC and having an RDS instance into that particular VPC is optional. You can still go ahead with the default VPC only. Okay. I'll expand this in terms of connectivity. Then it will ask which subnet group. So for example, here, if I chosen my VPC, then the subnet would have been the subnet that we have just created. Okay. Because we want to continue with the default VPC, we have the default as an option. Then very importantly, it asks you whether this particular instance to be accessible over the internet or no, which is called as a publicly accessible. When you say yes, it means the URL that it is going to create to access this database can be accessed over the internet. It means I can, if a laptop is connected onto the internet, I can access it from over my internet using my laptop as well, right? But in a production environment, most of the time you keep your database engines in a private zone where it doesn't have an internet access. So this is the ideal configuration that you should do for your production environment. But because this is a testing environment and I do not have any other means of connecting to that database other than the internet, I will make it as yes. But again, I am repeating that in a production environment, you have to choose no. You cannot keep your database engine in a public facing IP address or public facing internet. Then you have a VPC security group. So you can either choose the existing security group or you can create new. In my case, I do not have any security groups. I will create a new security group and I will call this one as DB security group. Okay, and it will ask you which availability zone. I will choose 1A. This is again optional. You can just leave it on AWS or you can choose the one that you are creating. Okay. Then it lasts the database port number. So by default, MySQL works on 3306. So I'll just leave it like that. If you really want your MySQL to work on a different port, then you can do that particular configuration here. Then database authentication, how you want to authenticate to the database. So we already created a username called as admin and admin123 as a password. Admin123 as a password here. We already given the credentials. We can use the same thing to authenticate our database, or you can create an IAM user to do that, or you also have an option of using a Kerberos authentication. Okay, so for this particular demo, I will go with password authentication, and then I'll expand this to add additional configuration. So initial database, I will call it as DB. It means when it creates a database engine, does it need to have a database already inside it? And if I really want to create that, and I will call it as my DB, and it will ask the DB parameters, which are the default one, which it takes by 5.7 version that we had chosen on the top there. So I'll go ahead with that. The next option is a backup. Again, this is because we have chosen the production, it is asking for a backup as well. Enable automatic backup. It means that every time, every point in time, so it takes the backup of your database volume. Okay, and it maintains the data for a minimum of 0 days or a maximum of 35 days. Okay, so if you enable the backup, how long that particular backup to be retained is this setting 0. You do not want to keep the backup at all, just take the backup and don't retain it for a long time, and 35 days. Okay, so you can choose that. I'm going to disable this because we know that this is not a production environment, so I do not want to create a backup and all. I just leave it. Then the next setting that you have is a monitoring. There are two kinds of monitoring that you can do. One we call it as a default monitoring, and another one is enhanced monitoring. In the case of default monitoring, which is by default enabled on every instance and every database instance that you create, in the default monitoring, the polling cycle is 5 minutes. It means you get the data once in only 5 minutes. Okay. In the case of enhanced monitoring, the granularity can be decreased even to 1 second. Okay, so enhanced monitoring is a paid service. The default monitoring is bundled with whatever the rates of the EC2s and the database engines that you are getting, so there is no separate charge for that. However, the enhanced monitoring has a separate charging. Okay, it has a lot of it has a lot of features, something like a granularity and monitoring role and all, which we do not want to use as part of this particular demo, so I'm going to uncheck this. Then log experts, if you want specific logs to be maintained by the AWS monitoring system, then you can choose that. So choose audit log, error log, general log, or slow query log. You can choose that. Currently we do not choose anything because again just a testing database that we are creating. Then we have a maintenance, because it's a managed services from AWS, where AWS is going to manage your instance, AWS is going to manage the database. Then it will ask you whether you want to enable the atom minor versions of the MySQL. For example, if there is a MySQL version with the 5.7 that we have chosen, it comes out with a another minor version which fixes certain bugs, that AWS installs that particular version for you by itself. So it is asking whether you really want to do that or no. Okay, so if you do not want AWS to update any of the patches with the version related thing, then you please uncheck this. Otherwise, please check that. Then when you want to do that, it also asks for a maintenance. Then you can specify select time window. We can say that I want to do it only on Sunday morning, when there is no lot of people logged into that. You can choose that. Otherwise there is no preference. So based on whatever AWS time convenient, then it is going to do that particular window. Then we have deletion protection. Deletion protection is even accidentally when you delete that particular database, it's going to maintain a copy of it, take a backup of it. Okay, that happens as part of your backup. But deletion protection is when you choose this enable deletion protection, you will not be able to go to the dashboard and click and then say delete this database. This is very important as part of your production databases, because you do not want to delete them even by accident as well. Okay, so this is what you have to do. But again, this is a testing environment that we are doing for demo, so I will uncheck this and I will allow this instance to be deleted. So after that, it will give what is going to be the rate, but nothing to worry on this because we have chosen all the free tier options only, so nothing to worry on that. This is just an estimation of it. Okay, and with that I'll just say create database and the database will be created. Okay, and this is the process of the database. It is currently in a creating state. So I will pause the video here because it's going to take at least 3 to 4 minutes of time. So I'll pause the video, and once it is in a available state, I will resume the video again. Welcome guys, and as you can see that the database is already created. You can see in an available state. If I just click on this database one, so it will take me inside and it will show all the settings that it has, right? And the first tab is connectivity and security. Then we have monitoring, logs and events, configuration, maintenance and backup, and then finally the tags. So it will show the database, the identifier, database one. It has a role, what is the CPU utilization, what is the status of it, then what engine it is, and then in which class of EC2 it has been launched and which availability zone. and which region. Okay, so it has all those information that has been given here. Now if I scroll down, you can see there is something called an endpoint, and endpoint is nothing but this is the URL which you can access from your servers from which you want to have a connectivity. Now this endpoint works over the internet if you have chosen publicly yes, public accessibility is yes. If you have chosen public accessibility no, then this URL is going to work within the network of AWS. Okay, within this VPC network that you had created, it's going to work within that VPC network itself. Okay, and then there's a security group that has been created. Now if you look at this publicly accessibility, the currently it is yes, so it means this URL we will be able to access it over the internet. Now let's go to this security group and we'll see how many ports are open. So I'll just click on this security group and I'll go to inbound and I'll say edit, and as you can see that it has opened from some port and I will call it as anywhere. I want this database to be used to be accessed by anywhere, and that's why I made it as anywhere. Otherwise the default it takes it to the one of the IP from the AWS itself, so which we will not be able to access it from outside. So that is why it has taken something and we made it as anywhere. It's very important because this is how the default security group created for ADS will behave. So I'll just go back to RDS machine. So I'll just click on services and I'll go back to RDS. Okay, and I'll click on database. Now we saw the security group and the port number, and it has security group. So inbound is from anywhere and the security group outbound is from anywhere. So this is what we had configured. Okay, now let's try to connect to this particular database and we will see what all things we can do. So this is your normal database. So as you can see that without having much technical expertise on MySQL, how to install, we were able to create a MySQL and we were able to make that MySQL instance up and running. So let's try to connect to this. AWS does not give you any client application to connect to this MySQL database and work on that. So for that you need to have a separate client. So there are a lot of clients which are available. If you go and search it on the internet, the one that I have is called as IDSQL. This is what I usually use for all the demos. So this is a pretty simple MySQL client that is available. So what I will do is I will take this URL and put it onto the host name where I want to connect. Then the username I will change, which is the admin username that we had created, and then I'll say open. There's some problem with the password. Let me just check this. Yeah, there we go. And it asks me whether you really want to save it. I'll say yes, and then the connection will be saved. And this is what the connection that we got from HDSQL. So we were able to connect to this MySQL instance created on AWS. Okay, so let's try to create something here, and I'll just say right click and I'll say create new. Let's create a table and I'll call it as table 1. Let's add columns. I'll call it as some serial number. It's integer type. Then let's add one more. I'll call it as name, which is a string type. Let's say varchar, and I'll say save it. Let's try to add data to this. Insert row 1 xyz insert row to element, and that's it. So if you are already familiar with SQL commands, you can also execute queries here, and you'll get your result. Select star from standard table, whatever it is. Okay, so this is how you create AWS RDS instance using MySQL, and then you go and change your security groups, and then go and connect to that and work on that. Okay, the same steps to be followed even when you are creating the other instances. For example, I go to create database, and if I want to create an Aurora or PostgreSQL or MariaDB or Oracle or SQL Server, almost the same steps will follow. There are certain changes that probably AWS will prompt you to give the inputs based on specific Oracle type. Otherwise, moreover, it's the same step that you have to follow and connect to that. Okay, so that's it for this particular video, guys, and uh, thanks for watching this. Please subscribe to Chaturmana so that you'll get notified whenever we create and upload a new training video. And thanks again for watching, and have a nice day.